again, this is Charlie Belfontaine, and you're listening to the Home Buyers Hour. This is a radio show about client advocacy, and we go out of our way to find other professionals in the real estate business that we consider client advocates. That plain and simple. In the studio with me, I do have Carla Thomas of Urban Burb, and we're going to get to her in a little bit. I also have on the phone with us Mark McCutcheon of Chicagoland Home Inspectors and Vince Arricchio of Arricchio Law Offices. Mark, if you don't mind, give us a little hello and tell us a short little spew about yourself and how great you are.
Hi, guys. I'm Mark McCutcheon. I work for Chicagoland Home Inspectors. I've been inspecting for almost 5 years. We're right around the corner there on that one. And yeah, I'm glad to be on the show because I wholly believe in helping out people to purchase their homes, not just to kind of look at the house, but to actually explain to them what's going on with the house and all the stuff that you need to know to be a homeowner.
Outstanding. And Vince, tell us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit more about, no, I'm drawing a blank on the word I'm looking for. Whenever you go into court, what's that called?
Oh, sure. So, my name is Vince Arricchio of Arricchio Law Offices, practicing attorney 25 years, focusing with real estate 22 years. Overlapping with that, have a 9-year litigation experience.
That was the word.
Not sure if that, yes. So we don't like to be involved in litigation with real estate. The whole point of real estate transactions is to avoid litigation, but we like to say, goodness gracious, if the worst happens, we're available to assist with litigation from any kind of contract issues, inspector issues, anything that we need to get involved in, which I cannot say, other than something called like a bad building back in the 90s, I cannot say, Charlie, I've ever heard of an inspector doing anything wrong.
Yeah, well, I can. So there's good and bad humans in every field. All right. I just so happen to hear the bad home inspector human beings.
Yeah.
But we're all here for one reason today, and that one reason is Carla Thomas. And our company has worked with Carla for quite a few years now. And just, I know I was always admired by this woman, by how she really looks out for her clients. She uses all her knowledge and everything else that she has to, basically educate them, make sure they're making good home buying decisions. And I've been trying to get her on this show, but because this woman wants to be a doctor or something like that, and she needs to go to Northwestern University and school, she can't come to the recording dates on the days we normally record. So enough of that. Carla, please tell us about your company, about you, and tell them why I think you're special.
Well, hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I know Charlie and Mark pretty well. Glad to meet Vince as well. My name is Carla Thomas. I own a company called Urban Burb Realty. So I started in real estate back in 2004, 3, as an investor. So the numbers just always made sense to me. This concept that you can, take a down payment, invest in a home, rent that home out, have somebody else pay the mortgage, and then eventually it would be yours. I came into real estate as a long-term investing game. Slowly but surely, I got my real estate license to handle my own sort of swaps here and there. I was working full-time as an engineer. And then eventually I started to realize I like this hunt more than I like the whole desk job thing.
I'm going to stop you a little bit. You said as an engineer. What type of engineer?
That's cool.
It is cool. I didn't know that.
I have a mechanical engineering degree.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, I have a mechanical engineering degree. I worked in manufacturing and supply chain for about 15 years.
That's cool.
Before I quit and went real estate full time.
Excellent. Sorry I interrupted.
No problem. Now I'm aging myself. But anyway. And so when I decided to sort of quit my job and kind of focus on real estate full time, I was doing it part time for over 10 years. I decided I needed a niche. Like any good business needs something that they specialize in. So I named my company Urban Burb because I had recently made the transition from the city to the suburbs. And for any family who's ever had to go through that, we're all like, oh, no, we consider ourselves city people. We really don't want to move because we're too cool for that and blah, blah, blah. And then you have to find the right fit, right? Like fit for who your family is. I have a very, let's just say, non-traditional family, multiracial. interracial, same-sex, adopted kid. Like, we need to make sure we ended up somewhere where like we wouldn't be getting weird side eyes from people. And so what that process looked for me was like literally, casing the joint. I mean, if somebody saw me during that time,
I love
they'd
that.
wonder what. I mean, I would be on conference calls, long conference calls back in the day before Zoom, and I'd get in my car and I would literally drive up and down the streets of
Wow.
the communities that I were considering, because it's not just like I want to move to Evanston or one big community. Like, there's sub communities within there. I want to know where I thought I would fit in best.
And I
And
do remember you saying that
Yeah, that's
you
cool.
like to do it at different times of day.
yeah, like I just particularly like the weekend. I
Okay.
would take my kids to playgrounds
Okay.
there, because then I could sit and chat with other parents and like get a
Yeah.
vibe from people who live there, who aren't really trying to sell me anything, or just to understand
See what
what
the
it's
humans
like.
are like in that particular
Yeah, so
area.
for me, it's less about the
You
different
know?
types of
Yeah.
day, more like different, during the summer, during
Yeah.
the weekends, things like that, when people are doing different things. And so that was such a journey for me, trying to figure out what the right community. I firmly believe that you need to be shopping communities before you shop house. You can always fix the house. You can change the house. You can often, if it's a house versus a condo, you can often add to the house. Can't change the community after the fact, right?
Right.
And so I am
Correct.
like 100% focused on finding the right community, making sure it vibes with who you are and what you want, before you find the house. When people come to me and they're like, well, anywhere within 45 minutes of downtown, like in all directions, really, like we're going to be looking forever, because you really need to figure out what's important to you. And I think putting like the community values is important first. And so after going through this myself, I decided to sort of model my entire company on so this idea of herb to burb, or sometimes people are just trying to make a decision and they make a decision to stay in the city. I also work with a lot of people who are transitioning from a different town, because you got a job in Chicago and you don't even know where to start. Helping
Right.
them sort of, if they spend 15 minutes on the phone with me, I can kind of say, well, okay, based on what you said is important to you, here are 5 communities to consider. You're
love
gonna do a
it.
little homework, and then we can start looking for a house.
So-
That's
Not only that, but you've done it, so you know exactly how to walk them through it. You've been there.
yeah, and
You know all the feelings that they have.
I know all the feelings that they have. And then in this market, the other one thing that I think I bring to my clients is that I'm also a developer. So I've built new construction homes, I've renovated homes, I've built the home that I live in. I also do kind of short-term rental investments. And so in this market, when nobody's really getting the home they want because it is a rush for everything, most people
Yeah.
have to consider having to do some work on the property. And so, some of those initial conversations is just understanding what's aesthetic renovation versus something that will need structural work, and just helping clients kind of work through that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell, and we can get into other things as we go along. But, real estate has always been my passion. And, I love it.
Which is fantastic. And I think, right now, if anybody sees me looking down on my phone through the Facebook live feed, that's because I'm writing down notes of what Carla is saying, because some of that stuff is really interesting, especially about learning about the communities first. But let's start there. Let's start, I always like to go through the process, take a client from as soon as you meet them to at the closing table. All right. So you mentioned that you get a lot of people, or some people, from out of state that are moving to the Chicagoland area. What's that percentage for you?
It's probably 25 to 30% of my business.
So 30 or 70% are people that are already in the area,
Yep.
and they either want to move to another area within Chicagoland, or they're coming here from the other side, is the 30%. Cool. Talk me through your onboarding. Talk me through that conversation, that 15 minutes question and answers. In fact, if you want to give it to me, I'd be happy. I want to see if I'm living where I'm supposed to be living.
Well,
You know?
Yeah, give them the test.
Yeah.
So first of all, I would say people come to me with all different levels of research already done, right?
Okay.
So one of the first things I want to do is hear from you. What's important? What do you know so far? There's other things you should know that you might know, but like, what have you already figured out so far? And for some people, that takes the shape of, what size house and how much land they want. So that would determine, kind of where they want to be. Obviously, a big practical thing for many people is where are you working and how you get into work. Do you need to be access to train? Do you want to be 45 minutes from that job, 30 minutes from that job, 15 minutes from that job?
What is geographically desirable?
Yeah.
You know?
Another sticky conversation, because, to what Charlie said, I am presently in school getting my PhD because of education inequities and like my own experience around that for my family. And so one of the, people tend to come and they have an idea of of schools. And they have these ideas of good schools, which is a very tricky and sticky conversation. But again, I kind of give people tools, have them do their own research. I am not
I
here to
love
tell
it.
anybody what's a good school for their family or what fits.
And nor should we.
And nor
You
should
know,
we.
every human has their own right to choose.
Right.
Absolutely.
I know when I was looking for my family, like top grades is not the only thing, especially with a diverse family. And so I kind of make sure people have the tools to go do their own research to make that right response based. So I think, commute to work and sort of their school situation, or if they plan to have kids in the future, especially if people are coming from outside of the area, they don't understand that, like, while there are sometimes decent, like multiple options for elementary school, it gets tighter when you get to high school. So,
Okay.
like thinking about making a decision now for high school, which seems like the craziest thing when your kid is 3, but that was like one of the key drivers for me. Like, you make a decision now, you're in elementary school, then you have to move when the kid's 14, unless your kid like tests into one or whatever.
And that's going to be hard because they built the bonds.
Mhm.
They have their friends, their peers, they're close to everything else. And it's almost like a divorce.
Right.
We have to take our children into consideration. I think
Yeah.
that's wise.
Yeah. And so for me, my
Yeah, I
wife
think
moved when she was
that
14
was-
and hated that. So like that was one of the
Mhm.
things she's like, we didn't want to do that. So just helping people think about all these different things. Mark, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was going to say that that was the number one driver of where we moved as well. Same exact idea.
Yeah.
So
So-
it's super important.
I get to those kind of, I would almost call them non-negotiables of like, those are very important, and like more hard decision, like hard metrics to move around. And then of course we have to talk a little about price, even though it's still early in the game. You can't say I have $200,000 to spend and I want to live in Beverly Hills, right? So like it's a practical consideration.
Yeah.
But then we start to get to the softer side of things. Like, what's important to you? What do you do on a weekend? Like, what do you want to have access to on the weekends? Like, who are the people you want to chill with? Like, what are the types of activities that you want to do, in your free time and have access to that? And so then we start to get more of the neighborhood things, because that's really you might be able to find 5 communities that fit this sort of hard criteria, but then we have to figure out which one's going to be the best fit for you.
So normally I hear people, and you kind of mentioned it too, about price and houses and things. And usually one of the first things you do before you show anyone how, I shouldn't say you, what I hear other real estate agents say is they want to get people pre-approved for a mortgage. And I know if Joey was here, and I wish he was today, there's different levels of pre-approval process is what I've been learning.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are just like, yeah, you got income enough to go ahead and get this, have at it. And other people, they basically do the whole loan approval right up in the beginning so that they know there's not going to be a headache. What do you like to do with your clients?
Yeah, so I will say that like the last 2 years, obviously everybody knows the market is tight. There's a shortage of inventory and everything has multiple bids,
Buyers just don't have any power.
right? It's as buyers don't have any power. So while I wouldn't say that I was always pushing in the past for having this pre-approval where it's sort of everything but the appraisal,
Yeah.
which not every company offers, I push my clients to do that now.
Good.
Because often you're competing with cash offers. And cash is sometimes king. But also, if you can sort of position yourself to be as good as cash, look, all that needs to happen is that property needs to appraise. Now, that's another stumbling block in this market because let's face it, every property is selling a gazillion above market, right?
Yeah.
And so that's another space that it's again, another tricky place for me to advise my clients, because in this market, I can give you comps and I can tell you what I can prove to you on paper it's worth. That is often not going to win the deal today.
No.
Anything you do above
Yeah.
that, one, you need to make that choice. And I have that's a very clear conversation I've been having with all my clients, because 3 years from now, I don't want anybody to turn around. Carla told me to pay it for. No, Carla proved to you that it was worth
Yeah.
this. Carla explained to you the realities of the market and the fact that it often has to go above that, which makes sense if you plan on being in the house for a longer time. It'll work out in the wash. If you think you might move in 3 years, this is not the market for you, quite frankly.
Right.
But making sure that I've lost my train of thought there, but making sure that people
You're
understand that.
educating them. It sounds like you're
Yeah,
keeping
educating
them
about
on
the
track to
financial pieces
how it's
too.
gonna
So if
go.
you plan to pay $20,000 more than asking, and you think this is worth it, and this is your dream house, well, and you were putting 20% down, the bank is not going to pay that extra.
No.
So you need to have your 20% down plus the 20K that you're paying on top. So having those discussions, like from the first meeting in this market, this was not a conversation I was having 4 years ago. But like, it is a whole financial game now. It is not just a buying process.
But isn't it funny, Mark and Vince? Isn't it kind of funny in its own way? We've been hearing, most of these real estate agents, and I'm sorry, I'm doing the grouping together, but everybody's coming about this as I need to prepare my client. I need to get them, set on this course of action so they know what's going to be happening, so they're not going to be shocked with a surprise. Have you guys been hearing that as well, or am I the only one?
Absolutely. I mean, even yesterday's inspection was a perfect example. They're buying the house as is. The clients that we had that we share with the realtor, they reminded us conveniently, the selling agent, that they have 7 backup offers. So when they're
Yeah.
looking at stuff and finding big issues, it becomes like, well, what are we gonna do?
But
And
that's
when
not our
I think
choice.
The realtors,
You know,
right,
that's
it's not
never our
but it's-
choice. Our choice is just to provide, or our job is to provide accurate information, as accurate
Correct.
as possible, as thorough as possible. And that way we allow our clients to go ahead and make that educated decision. And that's where I was going, that I was happy to hear what Carla was saying on that. Listen, this is the risk, these are the rewards, but it's your choice,
Mark,
and that's been the common denominator.
Mark brought up something that I think is very important. And Mark and I, Mark and I have this. I love Mark, and then sometimes I hate Mark, right? Like this love-hate relationship
Sorry.
because, I mean, with one client alone last year,
That means he's doing his job.
he's doing
so
his
that's
job,
good.
right? Like
Yeah.
that's
right.
why I love him. But like with one client alone last year, they put offers on 3 different houses, and all 3 of them after the inspection with Mark, we were like, walk away.
Yeah.
This pressure, like Charlie mentioned it earlier, this market is a seller's market. And like Mark just said, the seller's agent was there to remind them that they had 7 backup offers. And buyers are desperate. I feel like I am more of a therapist these days. I mean, real estate agents have always been a little bit of therapist, but part of preparing my clients is preparing them for the emotional roller coaster from the very
Oh.
first conversation, because
Yeah.
this is not something where I'm going to go see a house, I'm going to fall in love with it, I'm going to put an offer, I'm going to get it. That's not happening for anybody these days. Even the folks with cash, it's not happening for. And so I emotionally prepare them for the roller coaster ahead. But also, there's been a lot of sellers coming back when there are multiple offers asking, will you forego your attorney review period? Will you forego your inspection period? Will you buy it as is? And I'll kind of share with you, this is my line with my clients. As is often required right now to win when they're 8 and 10, but never forego your inspection period. Because the difference between as is and waiving the inspection, which a lot of sellers have been asking for, like it's a priority for us if somebody's waiving the inspection. If you buy it as is, you are clear that the seller's not going to pay a credit for anything that is found. Then Mark comes in and he breaks your heart and he tells you that, there's a structural issue in the property. That's going to be a big deal. Mark and I had one last year. I had not seen termite in the Chicagoland area in like 15 years. And Mark
That was a
found
bad
the
one.
house that had like the worst termite he had ever seen, right?
It was crazy.
So
Yep.
at that
It was
point,
absolutely
that
crazy.
client was buying it as is. They were not going to get any money from the seller, but they had the opportunity to walk away. And the only thing
Good.
they had on the table was the money they paid for that inspection. So I know buyers are being forced to do things that just seemed insane 4 years ago, but do not give up that inspection period, because that, at that point you sign, that headache is yours one way or the other. And it's better to walk away with $1,000 inspection cost or $500 inspection cost, depending on the size, than it is to buy a house that needs $30,000 worth of, remediation of some sort.
Repair.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all money, and I've always said everything comes down to 2 things: how much and who pays. All right, and it's true, and it's what you're willing to absorb. And to me, it's what's the difference between paying $20,000 over asking price or having to do $20,000 worth of repairs. You're still coming up with $20,000 and stuff. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you also asked about this onboarding process.
Yeah.
And recently I actually just purchased a property in Michigan, and Michigan real estate laws are like totally different. The process is totally different. No lawyers are involved. Everybody has a title It's just so different. And it was such a great learning experience for me, because I had an agent there who, quite frankly, I was lost. I was like, what's happening next? What's happening? And because even though I do real estate here, it's not the same process at all. So I'm like, but this is supposed to be, and nothing was as it was supposed to be, or as I'm used to in this market. And it made me very grateful that for my clients, I created a process map. So I mentioned earlier that I was an
I
engineer.
want to hear more about that. Yeah.
I was a process engineer. It's what I
Yeah.
did. I'm a Six Sigma Master Black Belt. Look it up. It's a whole thing. It has nothing to do with martial arts.
Sounds awesome.
But it's a statistical
Sounds
process.
like a rap artist.
That would be an excellent name for a rap. If I ever go into music, which, if Charlie knows me, it might be my next 10 years.
Uh-oh.
I always like something new. But I created a process map for my clients. And after I have that first initial conversation with them, I send that out to them so that they know, because I will explain to them the process. And
Yeah.
they'll be so excited. They're going to start learning. They finally had their down payment. They reached out to the agent. They're getting started. And they may not be under contract on that house for 3 months or
Yeah.
4 months. And then they, like, whatever I said to them on the phone has gone out the window. I sent them an email with a process map that talks to them exactly what happens. Once, we'll look for a home, they'll get pre-approved, we'll look for a home. After they're under contract, then they can go back to that process map and see what happens. They can understand how many days they have for the inspection and turn review, when the earnest money is, and so I have that mapped out so that the clients can go back to it at any point in time throughout the process.
Which
That's
all
wonderful.
makes sense. Where in that process, and we could do buyers and sellers differently. I guess I should ask you: are most of your clients buyers or 50-50 or?
Not quite 50-50, more on the buyer side, probably
Okay.
more like 70-30.
When do you bring in the attorney? When do you bring in somebody like Vince here?
So generally the attorney doesn't come into the game until the contract is signed.
Okay.
Unless I'm dealing with an investor who is somehow subdividing land or has more complicated things that we need to make sure these things can be done before before we sign on the dotted line. So most of the
Like
time,
liens on the property or something.
yeah, well, not only that, but like, can it be subdivided, right? And sometimes because we
Gotcha.
have to put extra contingencies on something. So if somebody's buying land with the intention that they can
Yeah.
subdivide it and build 4 properties, they need extra contingencies to make sure that can be done, to have time to check that out with the city or the village or whoever it is.
They need longer due diligence.
Yeah, and
essentially.
longer due diligence periods. Sometimes that requires an extra addendum, and we reach out to the attorney to get that addendum done ahead of time,
Yeah.
which again is not standard for somebody just buying a house or buying a condo. So generally, because attorneys in particular are flat fee, we get them in once the contract is firm and it's actually signed.
Is that normal for you too, Vince? Flat fees and wait until the contract's signed before you meet a client?
Yes, that would be the majority of the time. When I've been involved either pre-offer or after the offer's made but not accepted, that's generally when you have either brand new clients or a real estate agent were to say to me, this is a very detailed person. They want you to just review the offer if they're the buyer, or this is a very detailed seller. Before they DocuSign Vince with me, the agent, they want you to review the offer. And I have no problem doing that. Yes, that's a part of our flat fee. Yes, there's more to do, more hand-holding, more time, but that's what we're called to do as attorneys. Some attorneys don't like to do that. Some attorneys don't like to work with first-time buyers because there's so many questions. I'm a people person. I do this because I like to help people, and there's nothing better than, helping someone, right out of college buy their first condo, or a family buy their first home. So my wife says, stop saying this, but I love first-time buyers. I think I'm the rarity, though.
Well, you have a good skill set, for
Yeah.
communications, and you make people feel welcome around you, which, I don't know. I just don't want to feel stupid. That's the bottom line. I want someone to educate me, but I don't want to feel dumb. And you have a talent to be able to do that. So thank
Wow,
you.
that's very kind of you, but I'm sure there's many attorneys out there who are
Oh, no,
great
there's
to
only
work
one,
with,
and it's you.
first-time buyers. Who are great to
Take the
first-time
compliment,
buyers.
Vince.
All right. Yes. And Charlie, I mean, what a heart you have. And Mark and Carl, I'm getting to know you. But of course, I think even just to do this Home Buyers Hour, we must either love people or love to be a part of helping people in the process. So thank you.
It's rewarding, and I always go back to reminiscing when I was on the fire department all those years. And Carla, brought up a point about going through the process, and all of a sudden the contract signed. And in the fire service, whenever we rolled up to a house fire, it was the first 5 minutes, it was busy. One person's tagging a hydrant. They're pulling lines towards the front house. We're sending a truck crew to either the roof or inside to search and rescue for victims. So there's like about 5 or 6 operations that are getting started, happening all at once. And, we got 16 to 20 guys on there working on this house fire, and everything needs to happen in a matter of 5 minutes. Once the hoses are laid and the water's flowing and everybody's moving in there, we know that we got everybody out. The work is still being performed, don't get me wrong, but everybody can breathe a little bit better now. And that's what I just heard. When that agreement is signed, that's like first arrival. That is, it's busy as a bee now, right?
Systems go,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
You don't have time, do you?
Nope. You're getting the inspection done. You're getting the attorney to start reviewing. In particular, if it's a condo, there might be condo docs and making sure there aren't any rules or issues. Checking recent meeting minutes of the condo association to make sure they haven't been. You might not have a special assessment already issued, but they might be talking about big roof work. So we want to look at the minutes to make sure. And so everybody's, we're negotiating the things that come up on the inspection. And so all things are a go. And then once we negotiate the items, we turn in that rest of earnest money, then it gets quiet for a while. And I always chat with my clients then, let them know that they're not going to be hearing from me as much during this period. They're going to be hearing a lot from their mortgage broker.
Okay.
And I kind of prepare them about what underwriting is. And the mortgage broker tells them everything that they expect and they should have. And then underwriting always comes and finds more things. So I tell them, don't get irritated. It's going to happen. It happens no matter how much you think you turned in. Everybody has different situations, so they require, and I kind of prepare them for that whole paperwork trail with the mortgage broker. And then I kind of tell them the next time we're going to start getting busy again, which is like about a week before closing. We're going to try to get our clear to close. We're going to do a final walkthrough, and we're going to hit that closing table.
No, all that stuff I loved a lot. And then one of the things you mentioned about condos and condo docs, and maybe we'll jump off gear. But before we do that, I think now is a good time for everyone just to share their contact information. Carla, I'm going to start with you. Again, the name of your company, phone number, websites, whatever you want to share so people can reach out to you. If you do want to reach out to Carla, write this stuff down. So go ahead.
All right. So Carla Thomas, and the company's name is Urban Burb Realty. We are located in Evanston. And email carla.thomas@urb, the number 2. So, by the way, urb to burb stands for urban and suburban. So that's where it comes from. So it's carla.thomas@urb, URB, the number 2, and then burb, BURB.
And that Thomas is with a TH,
Yeah,
right?
THOMAS. And my website, www.urb2burb. Again, that's the number 2 in the middle there. And 773-505-1121. Again, that's 773-505-1121.
And Vince, please.
Yes, you can check us out at reallawchicago.com. Of course, our information is also on Facebook and LinkedIn. Our phone number, 312-263-0010. And again, you can call us even if you are not under a contract, you have a general question. It's all about networking, meeting people. So 312-263-0010.
I have noticed that quite a bit, that a lot of people are willing to donate their time and energy to coach people basically for free, and now I'm bringing back bad memories of my divorce, and it's like all the attorneys always had this phrase, I don't offer free legal advice, but I think you are. Am I wrong in that statement?
So close. First, we have two duties, and Charlie, you probably know this, but for the audience, we have two duties. First, as an attorney in Illinois, we are not experts. We are not allowed to say that. We can say we focus, concentrate. They even warn against saying specializing. So we are not experts, but we are licensed attorneys in certain fields. And then second, we are allowed to give general information, but we're called to not give specific advice.
That's
However,
interesting.
when you call me, and I'm not yet retained, I'm not yet hired, I do just say, please know, everything here is general information, and you have not hired me, you have not signed an agreement, a written agreement as per our firm's policies. However, in general, the information I can convey is boom, 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 boom. And everyone on this call, or everyone listening, is like, whatever, that's the same exact thing as advice. Well, I don't know what to tell you. This is how we're forced to say and do it. It's when you end the the call, you have to say to your prospective or future or possible client, you have to say, you understand I'm not doing any extra steps on your behalf. You understand that this was just general and you really shouldn't rely on it, but it's to give you some guidance. And if you want to be retained by my firm, or you want to retain our services, I should say, we would just like to get you a written agreement. Charlie, that's how you avoid someone saying, well, you gave me this advice and you were supposed to do something. Do I have a written agreement? Didn't I share that information with you that I haven't been hired? And you do what you can to try to help people, but not get in a bind by giving advice.
That's fair. That's completely fair. And Mark, let's see what you remember
Yeah.
about Chicagoland Home Inspectors.
From last time. Yeah, so we are Chicagoland Home Inspectors. That's our company, me and Charlie. And you can be at thehomeinspectors.com. I actually love that website, and I think probably everybody does, because on it you can see all the pricing and options and different stuff that you can get. And then also you can schedule an appointment where once you pick on that scheduler, you just see all the times that are available so that you can just snag whatever works best for you, the person that you are looking to get. If you wanted to get me or whomever else, you have kind of a smorgasbord of all the inspectors that we have available at that time, and you can get it in that way. If you wanted to call, you can call 312-544-9180. And if you need to talk to me directly, or you wanted to reach out to me directly, you could email me at mark@chicagolandhomeinspectors.net.
And we did hire an answering crew. So they're now there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always going to be someone to answer that phone. Even on holidays, I feel horrible for those people, but they know our business, they know our pricing, they know what we do. And if you're not comfortable doing it yourself online, then we have human beings there that can answer the phone for you. So enough of that. So let's go
Cool.
back to condo documents, and this is something that Carla and I talked a little bit, so we might tangent off and get back on. But don't you want to also check if you can use these condos for like short-term rentals and things like that?
Yeah, so
Because not all buildings allow that, do they?
No, most buildings don't. And so, like
Oh.
Charlie just said, one of my newest favorite words, which is short-term rentals. And just kind of, remembering that I came to real estate as an investor first, like real estate has always been, first and foremost. In fact, my wife laughs at me sometimes when she wants to do something to the house. I say, oh, no, we can't get that. We're not going to get our good return. She's like, I just want it for me. Turn off the investor mind, right? So yeah, any clients coming, short-term rentals, and again, short-term rentals are people who are doing VRBO, Airbnb, things like that. People even have their own personal sites. That way they can avoid all the fees of the other folks. But are people who are buying to rent out, for a few days. There's a lot larger return on investment than long-term rentals. But the reality is many condo buildings will not allow you to do that. So when clients come to me and they're looking for a short-term rental, something that they plan to Airbnb, I definitely tell them to stay away from any condo building, because even if they allow it today, the condo association is in charge, period. So if they change their minds on you 4 years from now, then you have to change your plans to suit. And if you got used to making kind of 3 times that monthly income, than you would from, just having a long-term renter in there, you're going to be very sad to have to turn around and long-term rent it or to have to sell it. And if they change their minds in a period where the market is down, then you can't even sell it and make a profit. So
Now, have you been finding clients that you've been helping find these Airbnbs?
yes.
Oh.
So Airbnb, short-term rentals, the best thing, either houses or 2 flats. And I think 2 flats in the city is sort of the best. And of course, there's a kind of shortage of 2 flats now. Lots of investors are kind of getting back in. But in a
They've been
city,
clued into this.
yeah, in a
Oh, but if I could ask, did you guys ever hear that that's what they've been calling life hacks, to have the 2 flat where you live in one and rent out the other? But I thought it was more cost effective with 3. Carla, what are you seeing?
It's definitely more cost effective with 3. And I think the beauty of having a 3 flat for people who want to live in it is that often, if you cannot move in the future with 3 units, you can live on the first floor, you can duplex down in the future to the basement. or to like you duplex any two of the units.
God, is that such a Chicago phrase or what? Duplex down?
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
You don't hear that anywhere else.
And then you
Mm.
have the amount of square footage of a single family home for your growing family.
Yeah.
You still have the backyard for your growing family, and then you're still getting some income from the one. So getting getting a three is where it really starts to make sense. I will also say the numbers for two flat for a pure investor doing long-term rentals, so just regular monthly, don't often work out. It's barely making it. But if somebody's doing Airbnb and they're in the right location, that brings a draw. And I also want to talk about location if we're in Chicago. People always think, oh, well, I'd have to be in Lakeview or Lincoln Park or somewhere where people want to be. I will tell you, I have seen seen short-term rentals in Albany Park. There's so many different reasons why people rent. Travel nurses. Travel nurses are a huge boom
Wow.
for short-term rentals. So if you find yourself close to a hospital, right now travel nurses are making money hand over foot with this, and
Yeah.
they need somewhere they can stay for just a month or whatever the length of their contract is. So they're great. Don't assume that wherever you are that short-term rentals are not a good option. There are many reasons people come to an area.
That's
Do you
pretty
find
cool.
that most of the nurses are coming out of pocket for that type of rental, or are they getting assistance from like the
They get an
hospitals as
assistance
they,
from the hospitals.
there
There's
you
such
go.
a shortage. I know people who even have hospitals who just keep their place on permanent rental, and they rotate the nurses through there.
Wow,
Huh.
So
that's crazy.
That is crazy. That's pretty
That's
cool.
excellent for the investor.
excellent for the investor.
So is that different when you get that client onboarding? Is that just different properties that you're looking at?
The client onboarding for that is different. There's several tools available. AirDNA, which it sounds like Airbnb, but it's AirDNA.
All right.
So if you're considering any property for a short-term rental, this is a program that's called AirDNA. You can pay for it monthly. You can pay for it for the 3 months that you're looking at properties. When you buy a property, you can stop paying for it. It's like $40. And that actually kind of gives you the rundown, all the financial rundowns of the property. So what they do is they pull all the data from Airbnb, so they get an understanding of who else is Airbnb in your area that might be similar. What sort of price will you get? What's their occupancy rate? And they pull all of that, giving you an idea of what your return on investment would be. And so that's one of the major conversations I have with somebody who may not have been doing short-term rentals ahead of time. Making sure that they have the tools to run, making sure they have their goals on an ROI and return on investment for any because often short-term rental folks are not like specific on area. They're like, if the numbers make sense, you can do a short-term rental in a state that you don't even live in.
Because it's more of an investment than it is
Yeah.
an emotional.
Yeah, most
Purchase.
people aren't planning to go clean every other week or 3 times a week when they have 3 different people in a short term. They're planning on paying anybody. So whether that's here or that's in Joshua Tree, California, or in Michigan, I just purchased one in Michigan. So you can buy them anywhere as long as the numbers make sense. So you have to make sure I have some spreadsheets that I share with people, and then some tools
love it.
like AirDNA so that they know how to kind of take a first glance at the numbers even before we go see the property.
Because it's an investment.
If the numbers don't make sense, no matter how pretty the property is, right? And then the second thing is just understanding who brings people to that area, or what brings people to that area. So I have this kind of like triangle rule. So there must be people coming for either from 3 different towns or for 3 different reasons.
Explain that to me, please.
So wherever you
Yeah.
locate your short-term rental, you want it that, like, I'm not just close to South Bend, Michigan, and I'm going to hope people are going to South Bend, Michigan because they have great chocolate. They have a chocolate factory there or something, right?
Okay.
You want to make sure that, okay, I'm 2 hours from Chicago. I'm 2 hours from Detroit. I'm, like 30 minutes from South Bend, Michigan. So you need three draws. Or I'm located close to a hospital. It doesn't have to be just like a city. Located close to a hospital, so that's going to bring in people. I'm located close to a ski hill. That's going to bring in people in the winter. I'm located on a lake. Okay, that's going to take care of my summer rentals. So you have to have 3 reasons or 3 areas that people are coming to make it a good
That would be interesting.
short-term
That would be
rental.
fun.
Yeah.
To go ahead and find that
Amazing.
stuff out. So, have you been buying short-term rentals yourself?
I just did one, or we're closing next week on a new one.
All right.
And so
Awesome.
this is mine's located in Southwest Michigan. Just kind of
Which is
speaking.
an easy jump to get there.
Yeah, 2.5 hours away from me.
Yeah.
But again, I hire people to do what we call our turnovers. And again, even with those things, you have a list of things that
Systematize
each cleaner, yeah, you have to systematize it, right? You have a list of things that the cleaner
We're
needs
going
to be
back
doing.
to her engineering degree now.
There you go. I'm a
There it
process
is.
person, right? But
That's why
again,
it all makes sense.
the draw is
Mhm.
there is that okay? So it's on a lake, so I'll get the summer. It's close to Notre Dame, and so I'll
That's
get
big.
the September October game traffic.
Mhm.
And then we have 2 hours from Chicago. It's 2.5 hours from me in Evanston, but 2 hours in Chicago. It's 2 hours, 2.5 hours from Detroit. It's close to South Bend, and oh, there's a
What
ski
is
hill.
this?
I just mentioned
Carla,
ski.
is this Bass Lake or what are you talking about? Which
Shavehead
lake?
Lake.
Oh, Shavehead Lake.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the
Because
water's
I'm
clear.
licensed in Indiana. There's a lot of going on that direction. But okay, go on.
Yeah,
I'm
there's a
sorry.
million little lakes there.
Yeah.
Michigan just has clearer lakes than I found in Wisconsin. So for a girl from the Caribbean, I could not with the brown water. I can't with the brown water lakes.
Yes. That's
That's
great.
funny.
And some of those are just some plain old rivers.
Yes.
So let's get back to going through the process again. I mean, this Airbnb stuff does interest me, but I want to keep focusing through the whole thing. Well, the hell with that. I'm going back to that Airbnb. I want to buy. I'm
It's
trying to
interesting.
talk my wife into buying a bunch of vacation homes,
Mhm.
and it's like, why not get places that I want to visit, and we can rent them out when we're not there, and they'll end up paying for themselves, and we'll be making a profit on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's the thing. I have
Yeah.
investors that come with all different types of goals, right?
Yeah.
Like some people are like, buy, 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 buy. I want to retire, so they just like want to buy enough so that
Yeah.
they pay their bills on their mission, and that they have this passive income coming, relatively passive income coming in. I have people who just want to try it out, and they're buying far away, and it's not located here, but they've done some with me here, and they're just asking me for advice on other things, and it will all manage itself, and it's just a dollars game, right? It'll make
Okay.
money. But then I have people like you said, and like this new property is going to be for me. My goal originally with this is just for this particular one to just pay for itself, because I want to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So as long as it's
Big time.
rented enough so it pays for itself, I have a vacation home that I can go to from time to time, and the bills are being paid otherwise.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that kind of rented every single moment I get. It's a money maker constantly. So people come with all different goals, and I mean, I think it's harder in Chicago, although Chicago just passed a year and a half ago, I think, a ADU law.
What is that?
So additional dwelling unit.
All
I was
right.
going to say it's hard in Chicago because we don't have a lot of room, right? So you can't just put, but a lot of people
Right.
do this to help supplement their mortgage. So if they can turn their garage into like a little studio unit,
All right.
that the Airbnb coming through there can help pay their mortgage, because again, you get
Yeah.
way more in these, I say Airbnb, it's not just Airbnb, VRB, or however you're renting it, you get way more monthly than you would if you just got a short-term renter in there. So people are putting extra units in the suburbs. They can put it in their yard. Like Evanston has a ADU ordinance that just passed last year as well. But Chicago, people are putting it on top their garage or converting their garage completely. So again, I've had people who
I
are
have
just doing
seen a
it to
lot of
help
that.
pay their mortgage and supplement their mortgage.
Some of those are in great shape, and some of those are not in such great shape.
Yeah.
They don't take care
I
of
can
them.
attest to that.
So let's go back to, we just signed a contract.
Mm-hmm.
What is your list? What is your boom, boom, boom? This is what we got to get done.
You sign a contract. Almost immediately, within 2 days, you have to turn in earnest money, or most of the time it's 2 days. A lot of things are getting better for us. These days, earnest monies can be wired, and wire, depending, could cost you $25. But now places are taken via Zelle. So that's great. So now clients aren't running around trying to drop off a check, and then they could only do it after work. And then there's
That's
a
great.
there's a mail slot often in the real estate office, and they're like, I don't want to put this $10,000 check in a mail slot, right? So now that's happening through Zelle. Be careful with Zelle. Sometimes you can only send so much money in a day. So
Yeah.
there's that. But like most places will take Zelle or wire these days, so that's been nice and convenient. And then I send them Charlie's website and make sure
Uh-oh.
they get the inspection scheduled, right? And a lot of times it's like 3-4 days out, and we have 5 days to do our inspection. Initially, if we realize that we can't schedule and we're scheduling too close to that 5 days, I communicate with the lawyer to let them know that, hey, we're having that inspection on the 5th day. Email from now, get that inspection period extended, because we have to get the report back and have time to review it, etc. And
Vince,
so
have you been having trouble with extensions?
No. I think in the current climate, everyone's been quite cooperative.
Nice.
What have you noticed?
I've had clients tell me, they want to change dates or do, radon setups earlier, things that we're not going to have to go beyond that time frame. So I don't know if they actually asked their attorney for anything else or if they're just trying to give us a rush. And that's what I was kind of trying to figure out between you and Carla, what you guys were hearing.
I just feel like in this current climate, as Mark alluded to, or not even alluded, just kind of said that they were almost threatened, right, by the seller's agent that, like, yeah, I have seven other. Every buyers are kind of in this, like, I don't want to do anything wrong to piss off the seller, because they could just go to somebody else, right? So
Right.
just trying to make sure we're not, if it's unavoidable, if it's avoidable, not asking for extensions, not having to go in too many times, making sure that radon is done or at least placed at the same time or pick it up at the same time we're doing the inspection. One of the two. So I think everybody's just trying to be on their quote unquote best buyer behavior, because, the market is so.
Limited quantity.
Yeah. And there's always another buyer waiting, willing to, like, literally do anything for it. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and I'm not an expert on anything, but I think we're going to go through that this whole year again.
Yeah.
I think with all the rate hikes that they're talking about to slow things down, that's going to push home buyers to move faster.
Yeah, and the inventory is just not there. I saw something on
Yeah.
CNN this morning that it's the toughest for people making 75 to 100,000 based on them qualifying for houses like under 413,000 or something like that. The numbers were, but that, like, in that demographic,
Yeah.
the inventory is 63% less,
Wow.
or 60% of what it was. Sorry, so 40-something% less.
And I know you have a
30-something%
lot
less.
of cash investor groups out there too that are
Yeah.
buying up a lot of those houses, and all that is driving the prices up, which is great for the homeowners, but not always the greatest thing for
Not
the home buyers.
Yeah. And I guess that's another thing that, again, you say cash, and for most people, this is not at all possible. But I was talking to my mortgage broker, who I work with closely, and she was saying she's doing so many revert, or like not reverse mortgage, but after the mortgages after the fact.
What does that mean?
So people are, because of the reality, everything they're bidding on, some cash buyer got it. They're either borrowing cash from family members, pulling cash out of their equity if they own something already that they planned on keeping, pulling cash out of that to be able to pay it, to pay in cash. And so if you are able to manage to pay something in cash, again, not a possibility for everybody, so I don't want to put this lightly. Then if you finance into a loan within 6 months of that, you will be able to get a loan as if with the same rates. Now, we all know that if you own a house outright today, you could get an equity line of credit. Those interest rates are different. Not talking about that.
Right.
But if you do it within, some places is 3 months, some places is 6 months. Most of the time, you have to do it immediately and get the cash back to wherever you got it from. And
I've done
so
that.
people are doing that, and then they just, they close, and then they refinance pretty immediately, and they're back into the mortgage, but they were able to come to the table with cash, which unfortunately in some markets is what you need to win.
I'm giggling
That's
over
exactly
here
how I got
listening to you
mine.
talk about that. You reminded me of a fireman I worked with. His name was Tom, and he built a house with credit cards. He charged construction of a
Oh, boy.
house with all this stuff. You did too? You're raising your hand.
Girlfriend likes to fly.
It's a fly.
Oh man, nice.
Oh, that's awesome.
Cannot
I
be
love
tied
it.
down.
I told you I have a
Yeah.
supply chain background, right? The house I live in, I have purchased every piece of lumber. I negotiated with lumber companies
No
around
way.
town. Everything got paid for on credit card, so girlfriend can fly.
I love it. We're running a little bit out of time. We only have a few more minutes left. Carla, if you don't mind, please give us your contact information one more time before we close.
Sure, it's carla.thomas@urb, URB, and then that's the number 2, burb, BURB.com, and that's 773-505-1121.
And Vince, if you don't mind.
Yes, it's reallawchicago.com, Vince Arricchio, Arricchio Law Offices, and 312-263-0010. Thank you.
And Mark?
You can Google us at Chicagoland Home Inspectors, or you can find us at thehomeinspectors.com, or you could call 312-544-9180.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm going to do a little add-on to the plug on there. Don't be afraid, for anybody listening to this, look at those darn reviews. Read the reviews. Find the negative reviews about all the professionals out there. read the responses from the companies, especially on the negative reviews. There are fake reviews that are both positive and fake reviews that are negative, but just seeing how somebody responds to those things to me tells you the character of the human being. And again, I'm going to go over this. Humans are different. None of us are identical. And just finding the good ones and the bad ones in the different professions, that's the real key here. That's what we're really trying to do with this radio show, too. My goal is to find, the good attorneys, the good mortgage brokers, the good real estate agents. And I keep saying there's 60,000 licensed real estate agents in Illinois. 40,000 of them are in the Chicagoland area. And
so few of them are full-time.
And
so.
very few of them, yeah. There's a general rule of thumb where you'll find that about 5% of the people will do 95% of the work. And then the other 95% of the real estate agents are going to be doing the 5% of the leftover in there. So, the ones that produce, they work hard, they're dedicated, and they're doing something right. And a lot of that comes into where the client advocacy comes into play, which, again, is why you're here. So I want to go ahead. I'm sorry, Mark.
Do we have a second to jump in on that?
Yeah, please.
Or are we out of time?
No, you got all the time in the world.
Just on a personal note, I just love working with Carla. I think that whenever I'm around her, you can see the way that we're having this interview that come through while she's at the inspections. She has systems in her mind. She's very seasoned. She has been through construction. She can just start to put together all the different elements of this transaction, instantaneously. And that's just priceless if you're going to be buying a house. I would, if I ever buy a house again, it's going to, Carla will be my agent. But
why, Mark? Thank you so very much.
Yeah.
So kind.
But I actually literally mean it. I mean, it's really that she is a good example of an advocate for sure. So
and it's nice to have those systems in place where it's boom, 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 and she does let everybody make their choices. She just helps them make an educated choice. And that's the same thing I hear from Vince. That's the same thing I hear from Joey and everything else. Carla, if you are hiring on, now you have other real estate agents under your company name, right?
Yep.
If let's say I'm a brand new real estate agent, I want to come and work for you. Give me your one good golden rule of thumb, for advice on me to be what you want me to be. Hard question, I know.
Yeah, it's a hard question. I mean, I know this is not everybody will agree to this, but I always say start real estate part-time first. Make sure it's for you.
Okay. Make sure it's for you. Got it.
Yeah, it's not. It's not.
Dip your toes in the water.
Dip your toe in the water. Especially the market like it is today, jumping off there and expecting to replace your full salary.
That's scary.
Immediately is scary, and it puts you in a fearful place, and nobody functions well from a place of fear. Period. I mean, some may say well, it makes you motivated. Especially if you got children. I don't know. That's not the kind of motivation we want.
No.
We
want security. We don't want panic.
We don't want panic. And so for me, it was a strategic thing. I did it as an investor first. I realized even when I was not looking for myself, I really love the hunt. I love matching people to the right property. I love learning about listening to people, figuring out what's important to them. And a lot of times I call my clients and I say, drop what you're doing. This is the one. We got to get out there now because I've listened and I know I'm finding that match and I know it makes it. So I would tell people kind of start slowly, make sure it's for you. And if it's for you, that connection will spark and you'll stay.
No, that's great advice. I love it. But I think we're going towards the end of our time right now. We're going to sign off. Again, thank you for listening. And if you are listening, go to Facebook and search for the Home Buyers Hour. And you can find contact information for Carla, Vince, Joey, ourselves. And thank you for listening. And Charlie out. And WCPT AM 820.